All right, we are live. We are good to go. Welcome to another episode of the Rap Thought Podcast with Brandon, with Matt. We are here. We're here.
We're here, and we got a different episode for you this week.
Got a little something different.
We are not covering a single album.
We're going to cover, I wouldn't say a multitude, but kind of a group. So this week, we are covering the 2020 Freshman XL class. Which consists of up-and-coming artists in the hip-hop fashion that are coming up.
And, you know, I don't know how familiar or how much you followed the XXL Freshman classes from the past. I think they started in 2008 was the first one. But were you like, every year I wanted to check who's going to be the freshman, or did you not care? Like,
I actually didn't. It's not something I follow, but it's something I was like, man, I want to be on the cover of that someday. Like, that'd be cool. So, like, aspirations. But it's not something I covered every time. I was talking about it with one of my clients today, and he was saying the 2016 class is the best class. So I'm going to definitely look into that. But it's cool. I think it's great for, I guess I'll lump myself in the group of people that, like, I want to know who's up and coming and everything. And I want to know, what's some suggestions. So I'm actually looking forward to this week because it made me go outside of my comfort to check out some new art.
Same. I think, especially with this freshman class, it forced both of us to listen to artists that we wouldn't normally listen to.
Right.
Absolutely.
Would have no idea about most of these kids.
And, I don't want to come off as, the old head, the old hip hop nerd head, but none of these artists, just from even looking at their names or the way that they dress or whatever, would really...
I do agree with you, though. Like, there are certain names, like if Baby's in the name, I'm kind of like, I'm not... I can't take... I guess for me, I can't really take someone serious that has Baby in their name. But also...
Or Lil, for the most part.
I gotta slide on Lil because
for the most part, I didn't say all.
No, I wasn't an attack. We good, but I feel you though. It's like it's the Lils, the Babies. There's so many babies right now. There's Lil Baby, there's Dub Baby. We grew up with a Baby. In this one, there's Baby Keem.
Baby
so
Face.
I don't know. Like, I just
and to be for me, I was really hyped on a lot of the first freshman covers. Starting, the first one had like Crooked Eye, Joel Ortiz, had some bigger names that I would listen to outside of they're on the freshman cover or not. And then, 2009 was Blue, Kid Cudi, Mickey Fax, Charles Hamilton, Asher Roth, a lot of artists that I listened to at the time, and I agreed with them being on the cover. I was like, yeah, these guys are going to be the next big thing in hip hop. And then as the years went by, I think after 2016, which was a great year, I can't remember who's on there, but I remember it being a great year. After that, it really went downhill for me. And maybe that's where, me getting older and hip hop getting younger, that's where the disconnect was. It reached that point where, I'm not so inclined to listen to the newest artists, the young guys, the teenagers, and what they're coming out with. And so I've gravitated away from the XXL Freshman cover list and caring about who's on the cover because they don't resonate with me.
As of 2017.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like when this...
And they've had a few. I think Anderson .Paak was on 17 or 18. But he's a different type of artist. He's also older. He's not a young guy. He was probably in his 30s when he was on the freshman cover.
Everyone on this cover is pretty young.
Yeah, this cover, they're super young. There's a couple of them that are 19, 20.
Yeah. I feel that. As I kind of think back real quick, 2017 music, the past couple of years... hasn't been any type of mainstream music that I want to listen to. So, I'm sure I would, if I took a look at 2017, I'd be like, I'm not feeling that one. Yeah. But, I guess I kind of think is the XXL cover is like a bunch of draft picks of like the top 10, because this is not a representation of everyone that's up and coming right now.
Right.
So like, it's like, okay, how many people are on here? 12, 11, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm looking at it like from an NBA standpoint, like, okay, these are the first 12 draft picks that are standing out amongst their peers that are prospects.
Yeah.
So in case
I just wish it was a bit more diverse in terms of the type of artist that they put on the freshman cover.
what would you like to see?
I think it's still important to showcase the more lyrical or underground artists. You can still put those guys in there because you have to remember a lot of the top rappers in the game right now are started as underground artists. You have Kendrick Lamar, who started out in the underground. The whole TDE roster, basically. And they're the biggest artists out there. And yes, some of these guys on this list and girls, they might not be super well-known mainstream rappers, but they're also very popular, and they make the type of music that would be on the radio.
At least for the ones that I covered, I have to give, I don't know if this would supplement for what you're asking for, because I see that. But some of them, so I did Lil TJ and I did Chica, and they came up off of SoundCloud and YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that, which I think is pretty cool.
I think I'm more talking about the sound, not necessarily where they started from.
But what sound? Okay, so let's talk about that.
I'm talking more because there's other super dope up and coming artists that don't make this type of hip hop. They make more backpacker or boom bap hip hop, which is not a bad thing. In fact, it's a great thing because some of the top artists that we have in hip hop make boom bap. We just, for the most part, people don't like to recognize it.
Well, let me put this out there. Like, I feel like it creates, like, if you were to ask me what I like, hey, what's an underground sound? Like, if you asked me years ago, I'm like, oh, something along the lines of like Living Legends or The Grouch or Atmosphere or Aesop Rock, like something that it's a very like specific sound and isn't like out there to, hey, we're trying to sell to you, as opposed to like the crunk movement that was happening around that same time as those people, as I was becoming aware of those people. So with that said, I think about Lil TJ and Chica, for example, of like I don't know if they particularly have a sound to come up from, which I think makes this episode and this cover unique. Of like, it's not someone like Justin Bieber who is on you. Oh, I guess it kind of is. But like, he's doing a specific thing. Usher comes in, mentors him, and it gets him big. It's like Lil TJ was talking about how he got big off SoundCloud, had millions of views and was getting noticed by people, and then people wanting to sign him. But I don't know if I really get the sense that he was just picked up because he was hot, not because he had a particular sound. Or maybe it was because he had something similar.
Right.
But
an example for me would be Khan. Knowledge Above All Nonsense. He's a rapper from Maryland, and he's been, bubbling in the underground for quite a while, since probably 2015, and he's been working with Dr. Dre. Now, for me, that's a perfect candidate to be a freshman cover. It's someone who hasn't blown yet, who's put out great material and has a following, and they're developing and they're boiling up, but they haven't quite reached that pinnacle yet. Wouldn't that be someone you want to put on a cover to showcase, hey, this person is probably going to be the next one up? Instead of, I feel like they went with the people that have the camera on them right now. They went with people with a lot of followers on social media, and they went with artists that maybe are a little bit more charismatic or have an image that stands out, or makes music that is popular with today's kids, the younger listeners in hip hop. And I feel like it's geared towards that on this cover. It's not geared towards, okay, who's going to be the next Kendrick Lamar or J. Cole? Because running through all of these artists, their sound is not going to last. It's not going to be something you're going to listen to 10 years from now and be like, yeah, that changed hip hop or anything.
I hope Chica does not fit that mold.
Yeah, Chica's dope. I feel like there's a few of them that are a little bit different, but for the most part, I'm generalizing this whole group.
Yeah, no, I agree though. I mean, I feel like a lot of these people on here, they have a sound that I feel like has been familiar for the past 3 or 4 years. So like when I'm listening to them, I'm almost asking, what makes them stand out from the music that I've listened to. So I mean, I think of the eras again, like from high school, of like when you had the Yin Yang Twins and you had David Banner kind of coming out and everything. It's like their music is super similar. Like I feel like if you were to play their tracks one after another, you can obviously tell the difference between the two, but it's related. All the people on this cover, or at least, so I did 2 and then I kind of breezed through a couple of them. They all sound relatively similar.
Right. And they're all featured on they're all featured on each other's albums. That's what I noticed, because I went through every single artist. You'll find Lil TJ featured on Lil Keed's album, and on Cowboy's album, you'll see featured NLE Choppa and Baby Keem and Lil TJ. You know what I mean? They all have been working together, so it would make sense for all of them to have a similar sound.
Yeah. And real quick, if people aren't, if you don't have the cover in front of you, I don't know if any names will stand out, but on the cover you have Rod Wave, you have Mulatto, Fabio Foreign, 24K Golden, Calvert, NLE Choppa, Lil Keed, Chica, Lil TJ, Baby Keem, and Jack Harlow.
All right, out of those, how many have you heard about before?
None.
0. I knew one of them, and that was Jack Harlow, and I had been listening to him since about 2017. I believe I found out about him. And he's cool. He's not an artist that I'm really into, and I'm standing him. I think he makes cool music. He has a laid back flow. I like his swagger. If kids say that anymore, I don't know, but he's just like, he's a cool dude, and I could see him lasting for a fairly long time in the industry. I wouldn't say he would take over. I don't think he would be similar to a Mac Miller. I don't think he's on that level artistically, but I think he's a dope artist. But other than that, I knew nothing about any of the other artists.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about any of these people. And again, that's why I'm looking forward to this episode, because it made me really reach out and check who these people are. So, I mean, before we get into the ones that we invested in, we could chat about the ones that we kind of just breezed through. So you went through all of them.
I went through all of it and skimmed through their projects, listened to their sound, listened to what they're talking about, and took a few notes. I'll start with Fabio Foreign. His project was 800 BC, and it was an EP. This was whack to me. I didn't like it at all. I just think he doesn't have a good flow. The beats sound cheap, if that makes sense. It just sounds like one of his homies made the beats. So I just couldn't get into it. For me, if the production's not even there, I'm really not going to get into it. I can get behind good production and shitty lyrics. That's fine, because you can still vibe with the overall sound of it. But yeah, I couldn't get into it. I tried.
What were some of the stuff like in which you skimmed? What was some of the elements that he was talking about?
Honestly, I don't even know. I wasn't even really paying attention to what he was saying because the beats were so bad. I was just like, I can't even listen to this. One artist that I thought was dope was the other girl, Mulatto. I thought she was really cool. I liked her flow, and she's a really good singer. So she would rap and sing, and I thought she did it in a really cool way. But the thing for me is, again, her beats were kind of boring. The production didn't really reel me in like that. And she's kind of just trying to, her lyrics, it's almost as if she's trying to be one of the male rappers. She's very aggressive. She's talking about, how guys are fucked up. She's getting money, fuck the haters, that kind of vibe. And it just didn't really resonate with me.
Did it not feel like there was, if we've done a lot of kind of deep albums that had some depth. Did you feel like the depth was lacking?
Yeah, the depth was lacking. And honestly, my takeaway from hers is she should just sing, because she's a good singer. I think she should stick with that and not try to be, this hardcore aggressive rapper.
So it makes me think of I didn't catch Mulatto, but I mean I'm thinking about one of our last pods on Queen Latifah. Queen Latifah can I don't know if I want to say she's aggressive, but I mean she's definitely
aggressive
up there with you.
But she has depth to her. You know, there's a reason why she is aggressive towards you. It's not just she's hating on haters and shit like that. There's a reason. She has not an explanation, but she has a reasoning behind why she is aggressive, why she'll punch you in the face. You know what I mean? And she backs it up. Whereas this is just shit talking.
Gotcha. One of the ones that I didn't cover. NLE Chop, I gave him a couple tracks. I didn't have enough time to go through his whole thing. I thought if I were back in high school and I'm looking for those beats to like kind of just vibe to, like if I'm at a party having a drink, like that's probably what I'm looking for.
Right.
But in terms of like, the one thing I do have to say about the people I did listen to was that they were all coherent, which I give props for, because I don't want, when I was looking at this cover, I'm like, man, how many of these are gonna bumble? How many of these are just gonna like I want to be able to understand? And none of them did.
None of them were mumbling.
None of them were doing that. So
they're more doing. I call it the, and I'm gonna reference this when we actually get into the artists that we covered, but I call it the singy, songy, rappy style. You know, they're singing, they're rapping, it's songy, it's like the Post Malone vibe, and they're all doing it. They're all copying each other, and that they do the singy, songy, rappy shit.
I did see a little bit of that. Singy, songy, rappy. I'll note that down.
Yeah, that's the genre.
But like Chopley, he had like a weird flow where like he kind of like in spurts, and then he made
kind of, it was weird delivery. And it got kind of annoying after a little bit.
Well, that's why I think I only gave it a couple tracks. But I mean, it's like the beats were all right, but I just didn't like the delivery. I didn't like the content. But I mean, if I'm there to not really listen, if I just need a vibe, that's probably where that audience that would probably relate.
Yeah.
If you feel like you can relate to me, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. I liked Baby Keem's project, Die For My Bitch. No, I like the sound of it. I thought it was a little bit different from the other artists on this list. He had kind of a unique sound to his project, which I appreciated. I liked his flow. See, like if the beats are dope and you can flow, I can get into it. You know, I may not, want to listen to your album all the time, but I can, as I'm listening to it, I can enjoy it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But Polo G was pretty cool. I liked his beats. His beats sounded more professional and more rich, and I don't want to say better sounding, but they sounded like they had money behind it. Like he was in a good studio.
That was the other person I didn't go in depth on. Polo G, I kind of put down sounds promising. So like I was willing to come back to his project. I got about 3 tracks in. I was like,
did you listen to the track where he sampled the same song as Tupac? Changes?
I didn't get to that. I definitely would have noticed.
When I got to that, I was like, I kind of perked up and I was like, oh shit, he's doing this. He's going there.
He's going.
He did name his album The GOAT. So he's gonna portray himself as the greatest of all time.
When I saw The GOAT, I definitely went in with some flags and I was like, all right, man, let's see.
That does take some balls to do a trap version of Tupac's Changes.
I'll definitely have to listen to that.
Yeah, no, but it's good. He has a good message in it, and he's pouring his heart out in it. He does a good job on it. I was going into, when I first heard it, I was like, hey, I'm gonna hate this. But after I listened to it, I was like, okay, that was actually pretty dope.
That's cool. But yeah, so I'm definitely gonna I'll go back to him. I don't see him as someone that's gonna stick with me, but I definitely was like, all right, I'll come back. It's all right so far.
And I mean, for the other ones, there's no real reason for you to check any of the other artists. I don't think. I think you should check out Jack Harlow. He's got some dope projects, but all the other, like, they're pretty much all the same to me, and they are featured on all of each other's albums, so they really are trying to sound the same. Not trying to sound the same, but they are sounding the same. They use the same type of beats, the same type of flows, same type of content, but that's going to be one of the reasons why I really like one of the artists that I'm going to cover is Rod Wave. Is he's a little bit different for me.
Okay. Should we jump into Rod?
Yeah, let's jump in with Rod Wave.
So that was I lied. So that was the other one that I briefly hit.
Okay.
And I had put, he was all right, but nothing stuck with me.
Okay. Yeah, so Rod Wave was one of my artists, so I took a deeper dive into his albums and did a little research on him. So he's 20 years old right now, super young, and he's been putting out mixtapes since 2017. He debuted with the album Ghetto Gospel, and the song Heart on Ice went viral on TikTok, and he didn't even expect that. He didn't even know it was on there. He didn't even have social media. He kind of came up he's from Florida. He kind of came up in a bad place. His dad went to prison when he was super young. And actually what got him into doing music, is dad got out of prison when he was older, probably in high school. And his dad bought him a microphone. And then he started recording music, and he was able to buy a computer. But then Rod Wave, he ended up, he got into selling drugs and stuff like that. And he ended up going to juvenile. But when he got out of juvenile, he really focused on music, and that's when he began to blow. So, and what I really like about Rod Wave is that he puts a lot of emotion into his music. It's a lot of heartfelt lyrics, even though they're not the most complex, they're not the most lyrical, whatever, but there is a lot of emotion behind them, and you can tell he has a lot on his chest that he needs to get off. He has a lot of trauma that he's been through, and he puts it into his music, and it actually works really well. Even though I'm not a huge fan of his production, it's not interesting to me, but I think he shows a lot of promise. I think he could develop into a great artist. So yeah, the album I really listened to was Pray for Love. It's his most recent album. He's a super dope rapper, and then he does a lot of singing on it as well. He does a singy, songy, rappy style. But he does it really well. I enjoyed it. It's a good album. I really like his energy. So yeah, I definitely think he deserves to be up here. I think he shows a lot of promise.
Did you catch some of the stuff he was talking about in his
A lot of it is relationship stuff. This girl broke my heart. I want her back, that kind of stuff. And then the next song would be like, fuck that bitch, I'm on to the next one, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that kind of content doesn't really gravitate towards me as a 31-year-old. But I can understand how the kids are into that. It's if you're in high school or something like that.
It's very fast paced and on to the next one.
Right. Yeah, but you do have those moments where you think you're in love or something in high school, and you get heartbroken, and it's the end of your world, and you know what I mean? It's very adolescent content.
One of the questions that was kind of rolling through my mind as I was checking on my two is, do you see either this one and or the other one, do you see them working with any of the artists that we grew up listening to, any type of a collab like that? When any of the artists you listen to fuck with these people?
I think, let's take, for example, Nas's new album just came out, and he did a song with Lil Durk, who's a newer artist. And I think it's up to the older artists to reach out to the younger artists and be like, hey, I support what you're doing. I want to work with you. And with that example, I think any artist would want to work with Rod Wave because he's dope, and maybe they want to ride his wave, or they just want to work with him. But that was a good one. Specifically, I don't know an older artist that would be like, okay, this is a good match to put Rod Wave with him. I think it's up to the older artists to reach down and be like, I want to stay connected with a younger artist in hip hop and support you guys and help bring more people to your fan base. Yeah, that was a good question. But yeah, Rod Wave, I enjoyed it. I think he's cool. I think he'll get better, and I think he's going to be one of the artists out of here that in 5 years will still be around.
Okay, that's an interesting take. All right, I'll hit it. So the one of two that I hit up was Lil TJ. So he was born, I don't know if it's Tony or Tion, Jaden Merritt. But what I find really interesting about him and Chica was like his career basically started off on SoundCloud. So he just started making tracks after tracks after tracks, and they started gaining clout and moving around and everything. So in an interview I was watching with him, he was talking about how, he would be riding the subway and people would recognize him and know who he was. But he's been rapping since.
Where is he from?
He's from the Bronx, New York.
Okay.
So he's been rapping since he was 17. So he's only been doing this for a couple years. I didn't catch his current age now, and sorry. So I thought that was pretty interesting. He grew up it sounds like kind of in a rough neighborhood. So he actually got locked up as early as 12 in juvie. And so they had asked him like, oh, which juvenile center were you in? He's like, oh, I've been like from around to place to place to place. And he's talking about how he got released on the first day of going back to school. But when he got noticed, he like didn't have a manager. He just walked in with his buddies to all these meetings and basically was trying to feel people out. So, to me, I've never been in that type of situation, but even when you're if you're buying a car, even you have to be super careful about signing the contract and what, they throw in there and everything like that. So to be in there in this room where people want to take advantage of you because they see you as a hot commodity, like that's right. You got some brass to do that. So my kind of notes through his stuff was that I like the things that I appreciated was that he coherent. It was interesting how he would rhyme off of a word for a while before switching over to something else. So like everything made sense, but if he does fire, he's going to do desire, tire, liar, and just go on and so forth for a couple bars and then before he switches off. I noticed a lot of his songs only had 2 verses, and they would have a pre-chorus and then the chorus. And one of the questions I saw trending on Twitter was like, should we bring third verses back? I forget who posted it, but I was like, man, I never really thought about that. But
I think I saw that too.
And you kind of think about it, and I always thought that by the time someone got to their third verse, it got kind of weak. So if you want to do 2 extended verses, that's pretty cool. But I feel to kind of do a pre-chorus and the chorus kind of just extends.
I think in today's music climate with
that playlist kind of thing.
Yeah, playlist with streaming, and then also you have to understand the younger demographic and how their attention spans are getting shorter. It doesn't make sense to do a third verse. There's absolutely no reason if you're this type of artist to do a third verse. It does absolutely nothing for you.
It makes a lot of sense. And I kind of saw it as padding the song. So if your chorus always repeats and then you have a pre-chorus that's repeating, that basically takes the bars you would contribute to the third verse.
You have to think there's a formula to this. And I'm sure most of these artists are aware of the formula. If you want to be on the radio, if you want to make catchy songs for live shows, live performances, which obviously they're not doing it right now, but when we can get back to it, most of these artists are going to survive on the road. You have to make songs that people can repeat, that is easy to understand, easy to sing along with. If you just rap at them for 3 straight verses with, a small hook or whatever in the middle, it's not gonna connect with the younger audience, especially in a live show. As opposed to, I'm sorry for bringing back Blue in Exile, but we just did Miles. Blue's doing 3 verses on most of the songs, and they're 5 minutes long. That kind of song is not going to work for a younger artist or a younger audience. It's just not. They're going to tune you out. They have a short attention span. They're on to the next thing after 2 minutes.
All right. Yeah, no, I agree with all that. Like the attention span is definitely shorter, and you see through this album as an example of finding ways to kind of mitigate that and make it so, okay, well, if I put out this, this fire track, if these things are repeating, then it'll make it so that you listen to the song longer and vibe with it, but I'm not giving you too much content that you have to overly process it. If anything, you're getting a lot of repetition because you're getting a pre-chorus, which I've repeated twice, and I'm giving you a chorus, which is also repeating twice, and giving you very surface level lyrics through my verses. So the thing with him too was that in in his tracks, I kind of noticed the same theme being recycled over and over. So he would mention things such as his come up about, going from being in a bad spot to where he is now.
Yeah.
He would talk about like it's his time to shine. He's talking about how he's flexing. He's not afraid to mask up and and put you in your place. He's talking about dumping bodies in Delaware, making a road trip out there. Not afraid to pull the gun out and do his thing. He's referenced a couple times how he takes, his mom kind of shouts about and like gives him some motivation and everything. But the problem I found in a lot of his songs was that, if I'm looking at the title of the song and I'm expecting that, there wasn't anything to come back. So in his song Decline, it's like it gets mentioned one time and then it's not reinforced later on. Right. So it's basically like, I'm not pressing decline. The story, I guess, is that he's not pressing decline because he doesn't want to talk to you. He's just busy. But then he goes in about different stuff, like talks about a homie being close and writing for him, and then a girl that's there for him, not seeing much of a tie. Like, I just don't see a tie-in with the chorus. And Lil Baby was featured in on this, and he just goes in on like being in a serious relationship in his first bar, and then goes off on nothing else. Yeah. And then the same thing happened with Sex Sounds. It's like, I just want to hear, like, I invite you over, I'm going to make you breakfast and serve it to you on the couch. And then, like, that's kind of it. It's like, where's the sex at? Which was weird, even when he did talk about it. So it's like you're hearing this, like, 19-year-old talk about, like, fucking.
Yeah. With that said, with all you're saying about his content, where do you think he'll be in 5 years? Do you think he has enough to maintain content for 5 years? Does he have enough to talk about to sustain him for years to come?
I'm going to be optimistic in a sense. I'm going to say no I'm going to say I hope that he finds a way. So like with all that too, like it was just, I felt like I kept hearing the same sound. So I'm hoping that like if he can find a way to evolve and switch it up, he's definitely that singy, songy, rappy, not even rappy. He's just singy, songy the entire album. Yeah. So if he can find a way to evolve and like maybe do a shorter album doing this stuff, yeah, I think he would do fine. I think I would also prefer him on a feature as opposed to like a full-length album. I think of T-Pain. T-Pain is great on features. Like he was getting songs hyped up and everything. A full album, 17 tracks of him though, it gets a little tiresome, right, because it's the same sound for an hour and a half. The thing I do also compliment on is that he grew up wanting to sing. And I feel like coming from the environment that he describes in the interview and wanting to sing, I feel like you get stomped out or like made fun of for that. So I respect and appreciate his come up and like still pursuing that, even though he's auto-tuning and not singing.
Right.
So that was my take on Lil TJ. He's not going to stick with me. I'm not going to follow him, but if I hear him on a chorus. It'll be interesting to
see how he develops and evolves.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll go into my next artist, which is 24 Karat Golden. So looking at what this guy looks like, he's up at the top left, and his album cover, I was fully expecting this guy to be just like a hood guy from the streets, doesn't give a fuck about anything, just crazy. And then I read about him. He's 20 years old. He grew up in San Francisco. He was acting in commercials, and he was going to USC before he dropped out to pursue music. And after I read that, I was like, "That's interesting. Let me pay closer attention to his music, because that's an interesting background to me." He was doing commercials and shit, and growing up in SF, there's not a lot of rappers that are big or from San Francisco.
No, Vallejo and stuff like that. We got
San Francisco, the city. There's not too many rappers that rep San Francisco.
All right.
I really can't even think of any. I mean, you have Hieroglyphics, but that's Oakland. That's different than San Francisco. Mm-hmm. You can't count them. You know what I mean? So that was interesting. And so he dropped out of USC. So he's obviously a smart guy. You know, he's intelligent. He had a plan for his life. I don't know if it said what his plan was, but for what he wanted to do for his career. But he was very calculated with what he wanted to do. And he ended up making his music, and it took off. So he's like, fuck it, I'm going to drop out of school. I can always go back to school. I can always pursue what I really want to do. But for right now, I'm going to do this music and blow up and do it. And so he's following his dreams, which I like. I respect that. The content is very much of a 20-year-old college kid. You know what I mean? He has a song about, it's called The Gram. And it's about girls hitting him up on Instagram.
Dude, that's seriously a new thing. There's a kid I work with, and he's like getting relationships out of Instagram.
Yeah, and you know how the girl the girls that are hitting him up, they're just trying to hook up with him, and then they're gonna hook up with all of his friends. Basically, they're just hoes. So all the Instagram girls hitting him up, they're hoes. That's his whole narrative for the song.
I like how you say "ho" and Siri lights up on your phone.
Yeah, she knows.
She knows what's up.
And then the very next song is called "My Bed," and it's about a girl breaking his heart and leaving him, and she's getting lost in the nightlife, and he can't stop thinking about her. And I'm just like, like, do you realize? Yeah,
like what?
Do you realize the contradiction of calling girls hoes, and then in the very next song, you're heartbroken because the girl's leaving your bed? It's like,
yeah.
Come on.
Do you care or not?
And it was just funny. Like, and you know, the production's cool. I like the music, but I just laugh at it. Like, it's just music that I can't connect to. You know what I mean? It's just not for me. It wasn't written for me, and I get that. So I'm not saying it's bad. It's just not for me.
Is there at any point that you could see yourself playing this music?
No. I don't see how, in what situation I would be. Maybe if I had a younger cousin or something like that, or a nephew that really liked this type of music, and I'll be like, yeah, I'll play it for you. Like, I don't mind.
You're not gonna play it for the soccer folk on a field trip?
No, man, I don't know. They probably make fun of me because they're older than that. You know, they're in the middle of college, so
yeah. But I mean,
but they grew up, but they didn't grow up on this. They grew up on J. Cole and Mac Miller. You know what I mean?
But a lot of these are
Kid
influenced
Cudi.
by the Drakes and the Lil Waynes and the J. Cole. So
Right.
that's why I was kind of curious.
Yeah.
Like, would they listen?
And you could totally tell he's going for the pop rap route. He's trying to make songs that'll catch on the radio. They're very poppy. It's definitely music made for middle school, high school, possibly college kids. If they're still into this type of music, but it's definitely for middle school, high school kids, 100%. I'm not mad at it. It's very simple. But to me, when I look at the whole album as from I take a step back and I look at it the whole, it's basically him complaining about girls. That's the whole thing, and it gets old. There's not much depth there. It's not much content. It's very much Post Malone-esque singy-songy rappy album about girl troubles when you're 20 years old. So for that reason, I think he's an interesting dude. I think it'll be very interesting to see his evolution and where he goes and what direction he takes as he gets older, and if he's going to stick with trying to make the big pop anthems like Post Malone, or if he develops a more concrete sound and really finds himself in music. But from reading, I think I read some interviews about him, he doesn't seem like he's too into music. He's more about
what?
He enjoys making music, but he's more into blowing up so that he could do other things.
So like blowing up, getting the money from it,
right? And the opportunities and the fame. Now I can move into this arena and do acting. He wants to make movies. He wants to do a lot of different things. So his goal is not to make it in music and stay there. His goal is to make it in music and jumpstart him into other avenues.
I kind of respect the ambition. And
he definitely has a vision and an ambition of where he wants to go and what he wants out of music, which I think is good. you should have that. You should have an exit plan, an exit strategy.
Cool. I mean, yeah, I'll definitely have to give him a little bit of a listen. That's cool that he's local to us.
Right. Yeah, it was super interesting in that he dropped out of USC. Like how
That's
many,
a statement right there.
Yeah, how many? Wasn't that? What's the other little rapper? He dropped out of Harvard. Was it Lil Peep?
Oh,
It was one of those
even heard
dudes.
of that.
He dropped out of Harvard to do music. So these guys aren't dumb. They may play dumb, they may act dumb in their music, but they're not dumb.
No, they're intelligent people. I mean, even
Yeah.
Lil TJ as well too. Like he may have skipped out of school, but I mean, to be able to navigate, to have the resources and to be able to navigate this thing and to get up to this point, like you got to give people some credit.
I think
for
a
that.
lot of these younger artists are a lot more savvy and a lot more intelligent than we think they are.
Oh,
We
yeah.
give them credit for.
Oh, for sure.
And they surprise us all the time. And I fully recognize that the music they're making isn't meant for me. I'm not their target demographic. But that doesn't mean I can't hear it and appreciate their vision.
And I think that's kind of the takeaway that I have too, is like, it's like I said a couple times now, like it's just really cool that, I mean, you know, that they can just go on and probably pump out a bunch of tracks and then they get noticed. And then now here we're looking at them on a cover. Like that's really cool. Like that's a lot
Right.
of work to put in. Because I work, you know, working with special needs, you see that all the time, minus the success from it. A lot of these kids are like, yeah, I'm just going to just make a bunch of videos on YouTube and blow up from that and I'll get famous and rich. And so like a lot of them just, that's all they want to do.
Right.
So the fact that these guys actually did it and came out with it, I respect that.
Yeah. So who's your next? Oh, yeah, Chica.
Chica, my final. I like Chica a lot. Kind of like a weird thing. Like I'd been looking forward to the movie Project Power with Jamie Foxx and what's his name? Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I've been looking forward to it for a little while. And so when you watch that movie, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but like the main character, like she's really into rapping. So you see her rap from time to time. And so when you're watching the movie, you're like, damn, that shit's tight. Like that's some that hits. And then I found out that Chica wrote all the raps to that movie. So there's like a good 3 or 4 not performances, but times where the main character raps, and that was all written by Chica. So I was already like, dude, she's on the cover. She's doing this movie. The movie was really good.
How old is she?
She just turned 23.
Wow.
Because she said that she's past 22, which is like she's grown now.
Right.
But yeah, man, she's cool. Just from those raps in that movie, I was like, all right, I'm interested. So she's from Alabama. She's born Jane Chica Oranica in 97. And what's cool is that she said she's born the day that Biggie died. So she's like, I don't want to say that he's reincarnated in me or anything, but she used the phrase that like, that you can't create or destroy matter, can only be transferred. And so she's like, I'm not going to say that I'm the next incarnation of him, but what I'd like to think is that when he was on his way out, he saluted me as I was on my way in. I was like, hell yeah, that's cool. But her come up involved going viral in 2016 by, I think that's the one where she was rapping to, no, it wasn't. But she was questioning like what it actually means to feel like an African American. She did an ego challenge, so rapping to Beyonce's Ego in 2017. And then again, she went viral in 2018 by rapping to Jesus Walks. And so she got attention from Erykah Badu, from Jada Pinkett. In her song, she mentioned she met Diddy, Puff Daddy. She met Jay-Z. And what's cool about the movie with Project Power is that Jamie Foxx noticed her on Instagram and was like, yeah, we got to get her in for this movie. So when you listen to her album, which is Industry Games, it's a very short EP. It's like 7 tracks. It's like 20 minutes. But I really like, she's got a couple metaphors in there. I love metaphors in the music I listen to. But she's talking about some deeper stuff for a 23-year-old. But she's, talking some of the the lyricism that she has. She's talking about how like the pillows are like pages with her mascara being the ink, and just referencing like the tough come up that she's had, and been putting in work on Instagram to get where she is. So similar to Lil TJ, she was like going viral with putting stuff on Instagram and YouTube, and finally getting noticed. But she, with some of the tracks, like in Imbalances, she touches on mental health, and the stigma around addressing it. And in a couple of her tracks, she talks about how like people have taken advantage of her, which also Lil TJ does. But she talks about how like, people are taking more from me than what I'm getting out of them. And I like the track Designer, which is not about, wearing all these clothes and whatever else. Like, it's an analogy for love and wanting like, I'm tired of fake love. I want designer stuff at this point. So, and then the ending, I'm only going to go through a couple tracks, but the last track on it is Crown, which is just carries this incredibly motivational tone. And so she talks about walking away from the brainwashing of going to college, how our parents just like, you got to go to school, you have to do this is the only way you'll be successful. And just talking about like walking away from the people that have doubted her, and just dropped her, and just like she's creating her own world that fits her. And I like how she also does a shout out to depression. And so, I'm not going to say like Kid Cudi vibes, but how many artists are out there addressing things that they have and acknowledging what other people have, and how it anchors people down. So, she's basically saying that, these people, they're trying to live a normal life with these crazy expectations, how she's trying to be, the voice for these people and can speak out, and how these people can replay these songs to get motivation and the courage to go forward with that. So throughout her album, I like the messages. I like the lyricism. I love her delivery. She does incorporate a little bit of singing here and there, but not too much to where you're like, pick one. It's just subtle, and it sounds really good. So, Chica, man, like I hope out of this cover that she sticks, and I can see her going.
It sounds like she's definitely a little bit more unique compared to most of the other artists on this list.
The sound's completely different. The content's different. The production on the album was pretty good. But all around. And I just like how she's already making moves into movies and stuff like that.
It sounds like she's setting herself up to be an artist that continues to improve and evolves and can be more dynamic and can do different sounds and can work with a lot of different types of artists. Whereas some of these other artists, they are almost pigeonholing themselves into only working with artists that are just like them.
Yeah.
I feel like she could be on a track with a Royce, and she could hang on and make a good song.
That's how I felt. I mean, definitely in some of my, artists that I look up to or really like I could see her working with these people. Like, I could see her on a Kendrick track and fitting in. I could see her on a Royce feature possibly and stuff like that. So, I mean, whether if it happens or not is a different story, but it wouldn't be, if you were to tell me that NLE Choppa was going to do a track with Royce, I'd be like, really? Or if he's doing the chorus for Slaughterhouse, I wouldn't buy it. And I know he wouldn't be working with Joe Budden. So it's just stuff like that. And you mentioned the word dynamic, and she identifies as bisexual, so I feel like that's gonna reach out to a big audience. And she's also she's on the heavier side, and she's very in her music, she's very comfortable in her skin. So she's talking about, one of the things that she went viral for was for body image and positivity. So she's very much about positive self-image. And I know that that's going to hit a lot of people. I think of Missy Elliott. She grew up, she was a bigger person, and she got a lot of shit when she lost weight, which ended up being due to a health issue. But I see her definitely sticking around, fitting in with a lot of people old and new.
That's dope. And I feel as if artists like Chica, who already so early in her career is doing so many different things and is making music that is impactful and has depth to it, I think that lends to having a longer career in this industry.
Definitely.
Because you're not just going to blow up and pop and become this star that shines bright for 15 minutes, and then when your shine dims, you're gone. She's going to have a longer burn, and she's going to be around a little bit longer. Let's
talk about female artists for a split second too, because I feel like there's not, I mean, you were mentioning Mulatto, like she's kind of aggressive and, you know, kind of just falls in.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe aggressive is the wrong word, because a female can be aggressive and it can be a great thing. Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned, Queen Latifah, Rhapsody, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, they're all aggressive at one point or another in their music. Or, you know, what's her name? Lil' Kim and Megan Fox and who's the other girl that's in the firm?
Something Brown.
Foxy Brown. They're all aggressive. That's not a bad thing. That's not what I meant about Mulatto. For me, it just felt like you could have replaced her. You could have used her lyrics and had a guy spit them, and it would have been the exact same thing. I didn't get the sense of who she was. She didn't really put herself out there like that.
You feel like it's a way to try to fit in with the rest of the audience?
Yeah.
Like trying to adapt.
It could be.
I could feel that if along the lines of, you know, I don't want to be with an artist that is just copying someone else to fit in, that doesn't have their own unique persona. Mm-hmm. I was like, all right, I've heard this. But I think with her, like, I just feel like that there's this, we talked about the stereotype of female artists and how, like, right now with Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B and Wet Ass Pussy, like, that it's not music that I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna play this. Like, I'll play it at a party and stuff like that, but it's not an album that I want, or around that, they're not albums that I want to tune into. So it's like, I really like Rhapsody, who's giving, like, you know, I'm liking her because she can deliver a female perspective about different things that I can really like.
She touches on a lot of different topics.
And even if I don't relate to it, it's something that she breaks things down to where I can understand, but she's just amazing for numerous reasons.
Rhapsody's on a different level. She's better than most male rappers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's just different.
Absolutely. And so, but I think that, you know, to bring gender into it, I think that's what makes her cool, because she's outside of that stereotype of, like, I don't want to say that Lil' Kim and Foxy Brown and Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, that they're all selling because of their sex appeal, but I feel like it definitely helps them. And then that's what they're mostly capitalizing on. But when you have someone like Chica and Rhapsody, like, that's what it's like, I don't want the sex appeal stuff. Like, I want content.
Yeah, the sex appeal is marketing. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't make your music better or worse. It's all it is to get clicks and eyes on you.
Yeah, but, like, and that's not why she's hot. Like, I feel like she'll be hot at some point. And that's what makes me want to listen to her, because she's not selling all that. Like, I'm not trying to hear, you know, I was a 50 Cent fan back in the day, but it's like, I'm not into him because he's on a cover with his six pack and all this stuff and muscles bulging. Like, it's not why I'm listening to him, because I was into the content at the time. Mm-hmm. But, like, as a male, you know, and then with the females and everything, you're kind of like, when you see Nicki Minaj, her body just grabs your attention. Like, okay, I wonder what her music is like. Mm-hmm. Chica, Rhapsody, I'm just gravitating because of their content.
Right.
I don't want anything extra.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what I'd like to do is, with the two artists that we both covered, I think we should make predictions for each of them. I kind of touched on a little bit with my artists, but I want to hear your predictions for the next 5 years for Chica and Lil TJ.
All right. I'm down. I think with Lil TJ, 5 years from now. So what? He'll probably be 25. Like, no, we'll say no older than 26. I didn't catch when he was born. won't be any older than 26, 27. And I kind of think that he'll be continuing to make music, but I feel like he's a product of the playlist era, where he's just going to be putting out back-to-back stuff. And I don't feel like his albums will really make a whole lot of sense, and we'll really be looking at singles, maybe some features.
So his trajectory will kind of go down a little bit in terms of sales and popularity and recognition.
I wouldn't be surprised. I could see that happening. Like, I don't see how I can see how he's going to stand out from new age artists, but like, I don't see what's going to make me, why do I want to listen to you 2 years from now that's going to be different from your first project? Yeah. So I really have to see where he evolves from that. Yeah. But I don't know, man. Like, I'm just not really feeling it.
I'll go and then you'll do Chica. With Rod Wave, I could see him in 5 years becoming almost like I think he'll find his sound, and I think he'll be distinct, and I think he will be considered one of the top rappers from this class or from this era. I think he's going to separate from the group a little bit, and he's going to gain a big following. I think he has that potential. So in 5 years, I could see him being one of the more spoken about rappers from this group and still putting out dope shit. And I could see him working with bigger producers, like, some of the more popular producers, and putting out dope shit.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but for some reason when I was listening to him, I thought of Don Toliver. And he's up and coming. And so, like, I think of, Rod's sound, and this is just an example of, like, I'm already hearing you somewhere else, and I've been hearing you with someone else.
That's why I said he's going to find his sound.
Okay.
He's going to find that in the next 5 years and separate himself. Right now, he doesn't have too much of his own sound. It's very similar to other artists, but I could see the potential in him in finding that and developing it. Especially if he works with other producers, bigger producers, they're going to force him to find his sound.
Gotcha. I want to piggyback off of that and go back to Lil TJ for a second. And this is kind of going into when I was talking about him earlier, was that I would like to see a shorter album with more like taking risks and not having the same sound throughout all of them. Right. So I mean, I feel like if you can do that, I think
that's one of the issues. Just to piggyback off of that, one of the issues right now with a lot of these newer artists, younger artists, they're putting out 20-track albums, 25-track albums for streaming purposes, because they know, all right, we're gonna put out 25 2-minute songs, right? Attention span is short, but if we have a fan, they're gonna stream the whole album. So that's 25 streams off rip. And then you're gonna add a lot of these songs to your playlist or whatever. So it's all a numbers game. That's why they do it. And a lot of those songs sound the same. They have the same flow, same type of beat, too similar to put on a project together. But we're in the playlist era, so they don't really care. They're not trying to make a cohesive, in-depth, conceptual album. That's not their goal. They just want to make a group of songs that you could play all the way through and don't feel like the album is going up or down. It just stays at one kind of level, the sound of it the whole time.
What do you think is more, I'm going to use the word detrimental to their career? Do you feel like it's the culture, the playlist culture, and constantly having to pump out numerous tracks to stay relevant? Or do you think in switching up their style and trying to find their sound to stay relevant, which one do you think is more important? Culture or style?
I think style is more important, because if you try to just follow the culture, you're gonna get lost. You're gonna be part of the herd. You're not gonna be able to separate from it. If you focus on your style and really focus on getting your sound, yes, you may not shine as bright right now, but your career is going to be a lot longer, because you're gonna gain a following that is going to be loyal to your sound, and they're not just going to jump ship anytime the next rapper comes up that has the same sound as you. They're just going to go over to them.
I think
because
that's
the
a
next one in.
solid answer. I think the only issue I would see is like if people, because in younger generations it's hard to think longevity. So if you're just like, no, it's present right now, like I'm not worried about how I'll do in the future. I need to just stay relevant right now and ride this wave. So I'd be curious if that is a thought process. I'd be curious to see if that comes into play doing that. But other than that, I agree with everything.
Yeah. So where do you think Chica's going to be in 5 years?
Man, I think Chica is gonna. I think she's still gonna be around. I think she's gonna be. I mean, I'm trying to think of I think out of everyone on this list, I feel like she has the most potential, and I don't know. Like she's just already done so much in so many areas. She's already been featured in a movie, and she played a small role. She wasn't big. But she's already contributed to a movie. She's already like voiced for people that are heavier set. She's already spoken for LGBTQIA plus and whatnot, and she's just already covered a lot of areas. And so I think as she keeps like evolving her skills, I mean, I think of Royce and I think of Eminem, how their styles are completely different, and it took a couple decades. But I mean, I'd love to see where she evolves to, because she already has a pretty solid platform. So
do you see her being more like a Rhapsody, where she's kind of hovering on the underground and making dope shit, or do you see her blowing up and being more, because she's not like a Nicki Minaj or Cardi B,
and that's what makes it great.
I don't even know who to compare to on that level.
And that's what I'm saying. It makes it great, because like when she reaches her potential and blows up, like what will she be like? Because there's no one else like her. Right. So there's no one to.
Well, I do want to say it's a crime that Rhapsody's not bigger. She should be.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, we should take a minute to say, Rhapsody is definitely, she's underrated. She doesn't get enough love, but I mean, her and countless other female artists, like they don't get the attention that male artists do, unless you are a Cardi B or Nicki Minaj, which
right. So how do you see Chica gaining that traction and getting on that level? Is it through her social views and what she speaks up for, allowing her to gain that recognition and that audience? Or is it just through her music, where she just makes dope ass music that a lot of people are into?
I guess there's some problems I see in that, because if she just rides the social wave, then there's gonna be a time where like something bigger comes along and takes over. Like right now, if people are talking Black Lives Matter, there's other people that are trying to get the child sex trafficking thing going, and that's gonna be the next big thing. And then maybe somewhere down the line we'll have Women Lives Matter and stuff like that. Like there's always gonna be a newer movement. So I hope that the things that she covers will be able to cement themselves into each one of those what I feel are upcoming movements. So she definitely has a lot of potential to stay relevant. And perhaps she could be like what we would hope that Rhapsody, the mainstream kind of Rhapsody. But like there's another problem too, because like the artists that we've covered so far on our episodes, you can make an argument for some of them that they aren't as big as they should be. Like we talk about J. Cole and how he's hot, but like some of his lyricism, it falls flat. Where like I like Kendrick Lamar, you like Blue. Blue's a great example. He talks about a bunch of cool stuff, but he doesn't have the spotlight that these people even have.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if Chica fell into that Blue realm of like, maybe even someone else would like. I'm gonna say Joe Budden. Joe Budden being hot in 2003, and then kind of like going underground and being relevant
and puts out great music,
right?
But all at the same time creates a loyal fan base that keeps their career going,
right? And it kind of sticks into that groove and doesn't really fluctuate that. I don't know. I mean,
that'd be interesting.
That's like I said, you can say that about a lot of artists where you would want their music to be bigger and heard. Joe Budden has a lot of cool stuff to say, but like he is cool where he's at. Blue is cool where he's at. It'd be cool if their music could be shared with on a more mainstream basis.
Right. So the last one is 24 Karat Golden. Where do I see him in 5 years?
Where do you see him in 5 years?
Oh,
Does he go back to school? Does he do other stuff?
I think he's not going to be in music in 5 years. I don't think he can sustain it with the type of music that he's making right now. His content, his sound, it's not going to last. I think he's going to move on to greener pastures.
So do you think that he'll have done enough music to get him where he
by
is?
then, I think in the next year or two, he's going to put out several more projects because that's the wave right now. Everyone puts out an album every other month. He'll put out a couple more projects, make his money. And I think he will see a decline in 3 years. And after that, he'll make a move to movies or doing acting or do whatever he was doing at school. I think he'll move on to other stuff besides music because he's already said that's what he wants. He's already he knows where he wants to go outside of music. And I think it's going to happen sooner than he expects.
The clarification I want from you is, you're saying that, he's going to move on. But do you think that it'll be on his accord, or do you think he'll fizzle out?
I don't think it will be on his accord.
Okay,
but
so you think he'll fizzle and take what he
will project it like it is. He will say to the public, I'm going to do this now because I want to, not because his streaming numbers are going down and he's not getting the follows and recognition that he was right now. So I think he's going to see a drop in numbers and then he's going to make a business move to do something else. That's what I think, because I don't think he's the type of artist to really develop as a music artist. You know what I mean? He's not that kind of rapper.
I'm going to have another question for you. I think I got to shout out your homie Bill. I think I met him.
Bill Cunningham?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Bill.
Shout out to Bill.
Hi, Bill. So I remember one of the things we were talking about.
We're going to get him on the podcast. Hopefully in September, he might be coming up. So we'll get him on here.
How about he can be on if he's listened up to this point and says like, "Hey, I got shouted out."
All right, I won't say anything to him. We'll see if he listens.
We'll see if he listens, and then you can be on the pod. But one of the things he was saying is we were talking about Kanye and I think M too, but he was talking about how after someone's third album they kind of fall off, and I was like, yeah, man, that's a solid point. So kind of thinking about that in the playlist era. But then also thinking about, I think of 2003 again. I think of 50 Cent. 50 Cent was riding a wave. He dropped, Get Rich or Die Trying. He was hot. He came back with The Massacre, I think in 2005. And then Before I Self-Destruct, I feel like was kind of I feel like he was kind of falling off by then because he was trying to compete with Kanye. Yeah, but it was his outro. But I mean, he had 3 years, 2 to 3 years worth of really hot being up there. I think of Lil Wayne at the same time. Lil Wayne's been around for a long time, but when he came back and dropped the Carter 3 in the early, 2009? And riding that wave for a long time, getting Drake and Nicki started. And then he kind of fizzles out after a little bit, and legal issues with Baby didn't help. But with all that said, with 3 albums and then you kind of fizzle, or with 3 years and you begin to kind of fizzle, do you see 24K or any of these artists kind of outlasting that? Do you see them being kind of a victim of those things? Do you see them even getting up to that, being that far in those things?
Yeah, I agree with that point. I think most of the majority of these artists will fizzle out after 3 or 4 projects. It might be more projects now because they're putting them out at a faster rate. It's almost, they're putting out at least 2 or 3 projects a year.
So instead of the
I'd move it up to 5 or 6.
It's so 5 or 6 albums, but within that, maybe even a smaller range of time.
Right.
Gotcha.
So yeah, because back in the day, you'd put an album out every 4 years, 5 years.
Right.
That was the average. Now they're putting out albums after 5 months because you got to get your streams up. You got to put it out projects so you can get streams, so that you can get people coming out to your shows. So that's the game now. I think most of these artists will fizzle out in the next 2 or 3 years. Some of them will last. Jack Harlow is interesting. I think he could last. I think he has the potential to. He's a talented artist. He's already got, the recognition of a lot of top rappers and top artists in the game. I think he could be there. We didn't really cover him this episode, but he's a super dope artist. Not all of his music is for me. I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of his, but I could see him lasting. Chica, I could definitely see lasting. Rod Wave, if he really finds his own sound. The other artists, maybe. I don't know. I doubt it.
I think there's also going to be other people next year's cover, which obviously can't speak about. Are these people, the 2020 cover has to find a way to shine over people that are already there. But then they're also going to influence new people based off of sounds that they perceive as working. Mm-hmm. So there's going to be the 2021 cover that's going to come up and, am I an upgrade from Baby Keem? Am I on par or better with Mulatto? So I think that's another, it's always going to be competition. So like we've both been saying, they all have to find ways to stand out, evolve their crafts, and keep finding ways to stay relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting dialogue. I'm glad we did this episode. I was hesitant because I didn't know any of the artists on here, and most of their music that all these artists make isn't really for me and what I would listen to on a daily basis. But I think it's to stay up to date and up to speed on what's going on in hip hop today. I think this is a good launch pad for that, for us to, discuss, because otherwise we wouldn't really be checking for artists that are coming out right now. You know what I mean? There'd be no reason for us to listen to a Fabio Foreign or 24 Karat Gold.
Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, it really, if we weren't doing this pod, I'm not listening to any of these people. I would have missed out on Chica. I would have heard her on, in the movie. I wouldn't have known it was her and then moved on.
And back to what I said in the beginning of the podcast, I do still think XXL could do a better job at diversifying the type of artists they show on here. Not just the ones with the most SoundCloud plays or the most followers on Instagram or the hottest song right now. Find artists that aren't going to blow for the next 2 or 3 years, but you found out about them now. I want to see that, because I want to see the vision that you have, that you see in artists. Do you have that capability to see the vision or the potential in an artist? Whereas all of these, they're hot right now. They're already hot. So there's nothing there's no vision. You know what I mean? You're just looking at right now. You're not looking into the future. So I think XXL could do better.
Gotcha. So Matt, I mentioned that out of this cover, I feel like Chica to me has the most potential, stands out the most, and I feel like she'll outlast the other people. Who's your kind of take to, or even either your take or you're hopeful to remain relevant?
I agree with Chica. I hope she does. I'm gonna stick with my boy Rod Wave.
Okay.
I like his content. I like his emotion. I like his dedication. I like his heart. So yeah, I hope he sticks it out and is still relevant in 5 years.
Well, yeah. It'd be interesting, in the comments, wherever you want to hit us up from, to get your guys' take as well. Like, hey, did we miss something on one of these artists? Do you feel like someone else would do better? Do you feel like the ones we chose suck? What do you guys think?
Yeah, let us know. Hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, Facebook. Even if you felt like us, where you're like, why are you even paying attention to these artists? If you listened to all of our episodes up to now, you would think we wouldn't even pay attention to this or these artists. But like we just said, it forces us to see what's going on in hip hop today, what the younger artists are doing with hip hop. And that's important for us to pay attention to. So yeah, let us know what you think. Maybe we missed it. We didn't cover really every artist. We didn't cover Cowboy really, Lil Keed, there's some artists on here that we didn't really go in depth with. So maybe we missed something.
Well, that's where y'all can hit us up and we can have those discussions. I'll take a look. If you guys post an artist and you're like, yeah, this one's pretty cool, I'll check it out. I'll have that discussion.
Yeah, or why don't we challenge some of you listeners out there to create your own freshman list? Let us know some artists that XXL left off.
Oh.
Because I'd be interested to hear that.
That'd be cool.
Or we should just create our own.
We should.
The Rap Thought freshman list.
Dude, we should look into that.
Next year, we'll do that.
All right. So I think that covers it for this week.
Yeah.
I think it covers it. So thanks for joining us.
Yes.
On this
Sorry
episode.
for the detour on the Rap Thought podcast. We're doing this episode. We'll get back to albums next week. And thanks for tuning in.
Have a good week.
Peace.